Surf's up, guys, it's Mauisnake here, and today I'm going to be doing my PickEms for the Legend stage. If you guys followed my PickEms for the Challenger stage or didn't see that, I got 6 out of 9 correct. I'm going for 100%. That is my meta when I do this. I don't try to game it just to get 5 or try to secure 5 by putting a not really 3-0, 3-0 type of team. I try to get all of them correct. That's how I play this. I want to see if I can just get it all right, you know? I want to put it all on the line. So, first things first, who's going to be 0-3? I think this one is pretty simple. It's not very contentious unless you are kind of going onto the Brazilian side of Twitter. It's Imperial. They just aren't that good. They barely made it. They made it with experience. They play solid Counter-Strike, but it looks, in terms of the way that they play, the style they play, we even asked Fallen this on the desk. It's kind of dated, some of the things that they do. They're not always refreshing their playbook because they could just play a style that worked for them 5 years ago, 6 years ago in some of the rounds, and that's fine. Some of the setups they run literally look old. Like the one that Pimp and I saw in the green room and we're like, that is an old setup, is when they play double overpass long A on second round, kind of like an anti-force buy. And it's just like, people don't really do that setup anymore, but it worked against Forza. And I think Forza probably thought that game was very strange to play because why are they playing a team that's 6 years old, essentially, in terms of the style that they play. So that's my pick. So going to 3-0 here, I think when you look at the Boo Cole's system and try to predict matchups, one, I think that's usually worthless because there's always an upset, unless you get a guarantee that there's going to be a second type of matchup or whatever. Like if both these teams win, they will always play each other. That's fine. But when I don't really like looking at it at length to try to guess 3-0s and like who has the best route. But I did for this one a little bit, and Copenhagen Flames do seem like they have a good chance at it, but I just don't think that they are good enough to... Like, I'm picking this more off of just who do I think is actually good enough that they can beat every team here almost no matter what. And obviously nobody can do that consistently, but I think that one team that can, given that they have a new organization, that they don't have to worry about things exterior to the game anymore, and should hopefully be able to focus up for this major, and I'd want to see them perform like that, is Cloud9. So Cloud9 is my 3-0 pick. I think that they're going to just win the major right now. In terms of the feat, because majors are just so different than other tournaments where it's not just always who's kind of like the best. Sometimes it's about who is just in the moment doing in great form because of their prep work, and I just have a feeling like Cloud9 would do that. That's more or less it. I know that their style is very much so fueled by their individuals, and I just think that right now there's no reason this team shouldn't have excellent individual form coming into this major, other than the exterior stuff like basically the war. If that's not really a concern for them, because now they have an org and they can just focus and they're young guys anyways, like then yeah, why not? Cloud9. I'm taking Cloud9 to win it all. Another team that I think has a good chance of going 3-0, but I'm just going to put in the lower category, is Heroic. I don't think that their style has ever fell off. I think they always have a very fresh playbook. I think that their players have shown by now that in a studio environment, they're always going to be strong and capable to do well. So yeah, it's a pretty easy pick for me. And I'm going to go kind of in order of how likely I think these teams will qualify now. So I think the next one is FaZe. I think they just have been the best team for the last handful of months. Pro League, Katowice, you name it, they're clicking heads right now. I think that there's no way that Kerrigan doesn't get this team to the playoffs at the very least. And I want to put it like this. I think FaZe are the favorites to win it, but you wouldn't take them over the field to win the major. That's how I see it. I would probably give FaZe personally about a 30% chance to make this major. If I were the bookmaker, I would give you 1 to 3 odds or something like that. I don't know how bookmaking works. Thankfully, I'm not a bookmaker. But I would basically give you the best odds on FaZe, or the worst. I guess you would get the worst odds to predict FaZe now that I think about it. But you would also, you'd make 1 to 1 more than 2 to 1 on your money. That's how it is. So next team that I think is very likely is actually Navi. I don't think that's too surprising. They've had shakier form since the war started, and they've definitely not been playing up to their standard, but they're even when their floor is as low as it is and Bit's not playing that well and Perfecto's kind of regressed to the player he was before, they still look fantastic. Simple is just the best player here, and I have no doubt that he's going to continue being the best player. Then the next most likely team in my eyes to make it is it's tough. It gets really tough here. I think there's kind of a tier list now where basically these these four teams to me are the tier one of like they should just surely make it, and maybe Cloud9 doesn't go 3-0, but they're pretty much going to make it in my eyes. Because now things get a little bit more random. With Copenhagen Flames, I think that they are even better than they were last major in some ways, but I'm just not always sure about them. I'm not confident, and if they get the wrong set of matchups, I don't know if they're always going to do that. They're always going to make it. Big is a team that I think everybody knows I have a lot of bias towards, but I created that bias originally off of how I truly think that they could succeed, and so I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna stick with Big. This isn't necessarily the next most likely team to make it through, but this is the team that, with what they did at the RMR and how well Crimbo played and how much I know this team puts in beyond just hoping for him to clutch. It's clear that this team has like a really good map pool. Their Dust 2 and Mirage are excellent, and not many teams. There's a couple teams here that ban Dust, but no one really is banning Mirage, as far as I'm concerned, of the top teams. So they're going to be able to always get to play those maps pretty much. And beyond that, I think they're still a solid Vertigo team. I think their Inferno is kind of, actually, I think they might ban Inferno right now, so I can't really say too much on that. They've like gone in and out of banning that one, but either way, I think I think they're really good. I think they actually have put in enough structure now with Crimbo. I think Crimbo's caught up to speed. I think he is incredible in terms of a talent. I think that basically him for Keto has actually surpassed what I initially put in my video about Keto out, Crimbo in, which you can check out on my YouTube channel. So that this is a team that I think is coming together very quickly, very well. And the BO3 win over FaZe at the RMR, that Dust 2 win was not a fluke. The Mirage win was a little fluky. It's definitely a little fluky. Like FaZe kind of messed up a couple times in ways that I didn't think FaZe would. But yeah, I think they look really, really legit. So that's what I'm gonna put Big there. After that, things get a little tricky for me because I think I just see the flaws so obviously in a couple of these other teams. But one team that I think is I'm actually pretty confident about putting into this is Furia. I think that Furia, even at the last major when they weren't playing with Safe, they still made it to the playoffs, and nobody really thought that should happen. And they it felt like they snuck in, but they still just play great CS. And K Serato and Yuri are, in terms of looking at the teams even here, they're one of the better rifler duos. They're about as good as, like, you think of Electronic and Bit, and you for Navi, you think of Twist and Rops for FaZe. K Serato and Yuri are just a little bit behind those duos. They're right there, and they play such a defined style that they always know what their win condition is in games. Even though it's sometimes obvious that Art is going to be aggressive, it helps their team so much that in higher pressure games, they know what's going to happen. They always know what's going to happen. They're under control, even though they look so ridiculous sometimes when they play. So I'm going with Fury here. I just think that it's really tough when you have such a defined style that is succeeding enough that you're going to just fall apart. I just don't see that happening. So now 2 more slots, and I'm just gonna put this one in. I think G2 is gonna make it. I think G2 is gonna make it. I still don't think they're where they want to be in terms of this lineup shift. I think that Alexi B has kind of weirdly gotten underrated by a lot of people lately, because if you look at the T sides of G2, sometimes it's very obvious that they could do something better in a round, but I still think they're doing a lot of good stuff in the rounds. Like, they're winning a lot of T side. Like, in terms of round win percentage on T side, they are one of the best teams in the world at almost every tournament they play. So I think a lot of this lineup is working. I think the inexperience from Monacy was hidden at Katowice when he popped off in some of those series, like when they beat Navi. But I really think that I don't really see this team losing 3 games. I think that you pretty much put them against any teams that aren't in my other teams to advance, and they're going to beat any of those 3 just fine. They would beat NIP, Vitality, and ENCE in my eyes right now. So that's how I see that. And then the last team is really tough for me because I'm actually between Copenhagen Flames, Vitality, and ENCE, and I'm this is one of those ones where I almost just am picking without my, like, the major is so weird where if I were using my brain, if I'm only using my like logic or recent past results, I'd either go Ents or Copenhagen Flames. But in all honesty, Vitality are good. Vitality are looking good again. What the signs we saw at Blast when they first unveiled this roster was a team that is going to just have exceptional CT sides, and we're beginning to see that again from Vitality. And so they're starting to find whatever that honeymoon that they had was. They're starting to rediscover why they had it. And I think that some of the problems, like this team is just incrementally getting better. Not even because they have to switch tactics up or positions, because the firepower on this team is straight fire. Like it is insane. It's mostly just, can everyone get better at English? And they are linearly getting better at English, and it looks like they're beginning to communicate. As for some reason at Blast, like the first Blast they played, it looked like they were communicating very well, and then they're like, oh, we're having communication issues now later once they started losing. And I think that they've fixed some of those. I think they have either shorthand phrases to like put certain ideas together very quickly, or they just all know, like, flash me in, like flash, like it's not hard to think of. If you just get the key phrases down that you need to reiterate in Counter-Strike, it becomes easier, even if it is your second language. You don't have to, like, people aren't putting together complex strategies on the fly in CS unless, like, they're a super well established team. But I think Vitality are just where they need to be in terms of comms right now, that I think I am putting Vitality in as my last team. And it hurts for me to do that to Ents or Copenhagen Flames. And the reason I'm not putting NIP, by the way, is I just think Esatag is a little too weak as an opper. I just don't think he's there, and I really just think you look at all these other teams, and like the operating prowess is just fantastic. You got Shiro, maybe the best opper behind Simple. Cadian is probably the weakest opper here, actually, when I think about this. But Heroic is just so good beyond that. Doesn't really matter. He lifts that team up. Brokey has put together one of the best 2022s thus far of anybody, period. Navi have Simple, best player in the game. Big have Surson, and I feel like Surson has conquered some of his, like, I don't even know if Surson really had land nerves, guys. Like, people put that narrative out there, and I think the thing is more like he was in bad form, and when the first land came back, he just stayed in bad form. It wasn't like, oh, he's bad at land. It was more like, no, he's just bad right now. He was just bad for some of that time at the end of 2021, I guess that was, when the last fall finals came around. Like, the team was not looking, Big didn't look good going into those fall finals. So, like, and he didn't play well because no one was looking good. Furia have Safe, and I think Safe is kind of equal with Cadian right now. Actually, kind of hurts to say. Don't think you can really pick one over the other, for sure. G2 have Monacy, who's obviously very good, but actually still has a lot to work on in terms of like rotations and being unpredictable in terms of his positioning. And then Vitality have Zywoo, like arguably another top 3 opper in this group. So yeah, that's why I just can't put I mean, Nico Dawes is probably the best opper outside of these teams, I'd say, or maybe James, actually, but I don't know. James' form has been a little bit shakier, but Esatag is probably one of the weakest oppers. I think the weakest oppers are probably GXX, Hades, maybe. No, I don't think Hades is, I don't know. I don't think Hades is that bad, actually. No, Esatag is just the worst. Yeah. I don't even need to explain it. Yeah, he's the worst. He's the worst guy. I mean, maybe Fallen. Maybe Fallen's worse, actually. But yeah. That's pretty much it, guys. Let's do it. Let's lock it in. Boom, bada bing, bada boom. All right, there we go. Those are my pick'ems, guys. Best of luck to everybody out there. If you follow my advice, don't follow it, but those are my arguments on these. Thanks for tuning in. G2, yeah, G2's good. Sorry, I'm like really reasoning with myself right now. Just final checks. Yeah, I think that's good enough, guys. Yeah, thank you everybody, and as always, being toxic is a choice.